Hey everybody, it's RJ, your host, and welcome to HashItOut. When it comes to raising capital, cannabis companies have a few options, whether it be through debt financing, mergers and acquisitions, blank check companies, or crowdfunding. Each route has its pros and cons. In this episode, I'll be speaking with Peter Vogel about the recent crowdfunding campaign completed by Leafwire, the LinkedIn of cannabis, and what's next for his company following the obstacles presented by the coronavirus pandemic. Without further ado, let's hash it out. My guest today is the CEO of Leafwire. Welcome to the show, Peter Vogel. How's it going?
It's going great, RJ. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I am very excited to ask you about the latest news happening over at Leafwire and what you have planned next. So let's just dive right into it, shall we? Leafwire is an online platform that was launched in 2018 that is geared, of course, toward connecting investors that are looking to invest in cannabis companies, bridge that divide. It's sort of known as a LinkedIn of cannabis and recently raised $1 million through the crowdfunding platform Seed Invest. So I'm curious to ask you how you feel that went, how you're feeling following that campaign, and tell me more about this, quote, unique opportunity that you feel this presents for your user base of now close to 40,000 members.
Yes, that's correct. We have about 40,000 members that have joined and created profiles, and they represent about 17,000 companies in the space. So we do widely represent across cannabis and hemp, the plant-touching part of the industry and the non-plant-touching part of the industry. So we have everyone from the growers to the bud tenders to people who make the lighting, the fertilizer, shipping, labels, lawyers, and investors. So it's anyone who cares about the business of cannabis or hemp. We've tried to build a home for those people where they can get together, connect, and generally just network. So we were very excited to go on to Seed Invest and raise some money. Obviously, building a online platform takes resources and staffing. So we found ourselves, in the midst of the pandemic, needing some money. So traditional investing was fundraising was pretty hard during the pandemic. I told some colleagues that I felt like I was almost pounding my head on a wall for 8 months trying to ask people for money during COVID, just because, people had a lot of fear. People pulled back money. Everyone was waiting to see, how bad's the pandemic going to get? Is my company going to make it? So investing new funds was not very common. And even a lot of the funds who did have money, they were reserving their cash to do follow-ons for their existing companies. Acknowledging that their companies were probably going to have a cash crunch, so they had to reserve their funds for their current company. So you had the dual mix of a lot of the smaller investors were afraid to get started, and then a lot of the funds were holding and conserving into cash. So that led us to crowdfunding. And we talked with, a bunch of them. There's, Start Engine, Republic.co. We ended up going with Seed Invest. They're one of the largest, probably one of the most respected platforms out there for crowdfunding. They have about 300,000 investors who are all members on Seed Invest. And I'd say, in answer to your question, kind of how we're feeling now, I think relieved is probably a good way to describe it, because
it's a good place to be. Yeah, sure.
It did. It was definitely worth it, and I'm glad we did it because we got funded, and we're now funded to do a lot of things we've been waiting to do for, the last year or two. But it did take a lot of work getting ready for it, a lot of marketing preparation, a lot of due diligence, financial review. I mean, they're very, which is good. They're just very by the book. You have to do a financial review with an outside third party. So you go over every agreement you've ever signed, every option and, investment document you've ever issued. Everything gets reviewed with a fine-tooth comb before you launch. So it just takes a lot of work. The campaign as a whole, they were really good helping us market it throughout the whole campaign. It's a 60-day campaign. And they come up with different, like every week, they come up with different angles of 1 week you focus on, say, the cannabis market's really hot. A couple states just legalized, so now's the time. One week we focus on what's Leafwire going to do next, like what's exciting, what's happening. We're talking about launching a mobile app. We're talking about a dispensary directory. So like all these things, you put out there as kind of lures, I guess, to get people excited. So we did that very intensely for 60 days. We did a lot of marketing out there. Like we did campaigns with people like Ganjapreneur, Cannabis Business Times, Green Market Report, all the usual suspects, all the great, B2B kind of news sources. Weed Week's another one we've done a lot of advertising with. And it ended up, the way that the crowdfunding campaigns work, you have to reach a certain minimum in order to get access to the funds. And we ended up reaching that minimum within like a day or two left on the campaign. So on day like 58 or 59 of the campaign, that up until that day, we didn't know for sure that it was going to succeed. So we spent a couple months of preparation and then those 60 days marketing the hell out of it. But once we hit that level, all of a sudden we got an additional 300,000 came in like one day. Once everyone knew it was funded, it was going to succeed, then everyone else wanted it in. So it's it's and they really promote the FOMO. There's only one day left. They're 99% funded. This is your last chance. And unfortunately, that deadlines and the fear of missing out tends to drive a lot of people to finally make that decision to pull out their wallet and invest money. You do kind of have to play to that a little bit. So that's one of the great things about crowdfunding is it sets those deadlines and really forces that. The bad part about that is that it does cause that stress of you have literally 48 hours left and you're not done. So that's the kind of the good and bad. But like I said, the feeling is relieved. We did it. It worked. It was a lot of work, but it ended up positively. So I would definitely recommend it to other folks who are looking to raise money. It's just another great avenue. We have done other raises with smaller investors and some funds. So we have experience doing the traditional Reg D raise, which is with accredited investors where people are putting in typically 25,000 or more each. That's usually kind of like a common minimum. So we've done that as well. We did a seed round in the very, very beginning. We did a friends and family round. So we have had experience with that. And we do have a bunch of traditional investors that are kind of on the team as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask you about the various ways when it comes to raising capital, whether it's through a special purpose acquisition company or a SPAC, which is essentially a blank check company, or through a merger, like the one that Tilray and Aphria have done recently,
right,
or through debt financing like Harborside did in March, or through crowdfunding like Leafwire did. Every avenue sort of has its benefits and precautions, of course.
Right.
So what do you see as the pros and cons to each of those avenues? And then what sort of led you ultimately to decide to take that crowdfunding route?
So it depends what stage you're at and how big your company is in terms of revenue and maturity. For a very young company who, may just be getting started, may have no revenue or very little revenue, you can't really do any debt-based financing. Usually, unless if you have a property, like a dispensary or a license, you may find someone who's willing to loan money based on that collateral. But typically, the smaller companies are doing the traditional equity raise, like a Reg D raise, where you're going to your friends and family. And a lot of the funds these days don't even, like they used to 2, 3, 4 years ago, a lot of the funds would take on super early companies because everything was super new in cannabis almost, right? Like 4 years ago, there just weren't that many companies popping up. So the funds were willing to jump in super early. And that's how a lot of the companies out there now that got several $1 million early got it from those funds. But now that the industry's matured, a lot of those funds only go into companies that are already at 50 to 100K a month revenue, already have established product market fit, already are, number 1 or 2 in their field. So it's harder and harder these days when you're early to get the funds. So I think friends and family are really the way to go to get started. They used to call it the doctors and lawyers round. That you go to any doctor or lawyer, and try and get them to put in 25 or 50K. So for the early stage, that's usually the what you just kind of have to do. When you're more medium, say you're at seed stage or between seed and A or A round, you can start going to the bigger funds. The people like Arcadian Fund, Poseidon, Fido, ArcView, places like that. ArcView is willing to do a lot of earlier companies as well. They tend to write smaller checks like 100 to 150K, but they're willing to take companies that are pretty early as well. And the crowdfunding, most of the crowdfunding companies want you to have some traction. So it's hard to do that when you're super early. Like most crowdfunding companies do want to see some revenue. They want to see the traction. And the reason they do that is they can be pretty picky because they have a lot of people coming to them wanting to raise money. So you actually have to apply. So Seed Invest told us of the applications or of the people that contact them, and they have a phone call, they usually they put live about 1 out of 100 companies. But you can imagine how many people contact companies like that who haven't even launched a product yet. But so they can be picky. So that's tougher. The merger is probably when you're much further along, like Afri and Tilray, and they have a lot of revenue. And I think those companies are both publicly traded on the Canadian markets, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's much more common when you're at that size and you're talking about, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, which I believe both of them have. And I think together they were 600 or 800 million or something like that. And what was the merge? Oh, the SPAC.
Yeah, SPACs. Yeah, the special purpose acquisition company.
Yeah, I believe it's more common for a SPAC to go to someone to approach companies who have decent revenue already because they're trying to look good to their shareholders and drive the share price up. And one of the ways you can do that is through revenue. So that's why Weedmaps was perfect for that because they have a ton of revenue. They have, hundreds of millions in revenue. I think it was 100 million. So that also is harder for the earliest stage companies. That's the SPACs. I haven't heard of many companies being acquired by SPACs unless they're larger companies that actually have pretty substantial revenue. I don't know if you know of many that have.
Not to my knowledge, not right off the bat. I know from what I've seen, SPACs have just been very popular with like celebrity investors. I don't know if that's what you've noticed too.
Yeah. And I think there's two sides to the SPACs. The SPACs are trying to get people to pump money in. And so the celebrity investors can put $20 million into a SPAC. And then I think that's appealing to a celebrity investor because they don't have to choose individual companies. They may not feel like they know enough about the industry or specific product lines, but that way you just pump money into a SPAC and you just rely on them to go out and acquire 8 companies and then watch the stock go up.
Right.
So I think that's appealing to them for that reason.
I mean, if you got the money to throw around,
for sure,
and you can just sort of be like, hey, here's this, do something with this.
Right.
Then, I mean,
for
sure. why not, right? If that's your option. I want to ask you about this also because you told Benzinga that, quote, the funding will allow you to increase your acquisition efforts and speed up feature development and site enhancement.
Yep.
You also teased just earlier, a few minutes ago, that you're developing a dispensary database and a mobile app as well. And you also revealed in that same Benzinga piece that you revealed plans to further develop the Leafwire agency, which is going to be an agency-style provider of media, advertising, and digital marketing services for brands looking to target the cannabis industry. So looking forward to the rest of 2021 and beyond, what is next for Leafwire?
Well, we're juggling like 5 different projects right now. We are, moving forward with the development of a mobile app. Everything we've done so far has just been on desktop, and we do have mobile optimized that people can use Leafwire on their phone. It's okay. It's not a mobile app though, and lots of our members have told us that they would love to be able to use an app when they can wake up in the morning and just open their Leafwire app, or when they're sitting in their car or their doctor's office. And it's just more convenient if it's an app, if it's built for the phone versus just kind of modified to fit the phone. So we think that's going to, one, help us attract a lot of different demographics of users who just really love using apps. So one, it's a customer acquisition tool. We can actually advertise in mobile games and different mobile stores, etc. So we can promote Leafwire in more places. And secondly, it's just simply an engagement tool. I mean, people will use Leafwire more if it's easier to use on your phone. So we think that's going to be big, and that's coming out this year. We're still figuring out exactly when it'll be ready. Some of the other things you mentioned, the agency. So we kind of came to this realization as we were marketing our own fundraise on Seed Invest. There's another company, Good Earth Organics, who is also on there. They're a cannabis soil company. They're actually still on there. I think if you're interested, you can go check them out on Seed Invest. They saw us doing a lot of marketing, and then they saw us reach our goal. And so they basically asked us to run a campaign for them. So we used a lot of our same resources and contacts, went out, did media buys for them, promoted, helped them. We're actually going to do they're ending, I think, in June, their raise. So we're going to do another campaign for them in May. But that got us thinking, we have a lot of relationships with media. Leafwire itself, we've probably spent almost $500,000 over the last couple of years on marketing. And, we've done advertising buys with everyone from Weed Week to MJ Biz to Ganjapreneur to High Times to Cannabis Business Times, all over the place. And we tend to make larger buys where we get, good deals and buy a package of, say, 10 or 15 standalone emails at once. And so therefore we have these relationships. We have the know-how of where a lot of these great B2B kind of marketing sources are. So we're starting out kind of this agency model kind of as a media buying company where we are given a budget by a brand or a service. And this could be plant touching or non-plant touching companies who basically just come to us and say, hey, we're looking to promote our brand to the cannabis, business community. And we can go out and do that for them, all over all these sources. And for them, it takes, they sign one deal with us and we go out and get them on 10 different places in, one day. So and they end up paying us basically exactly the same they would have paid someone else. For us, we have a little better rate, so we can kind of just keep the difference. So it's basically a free service for someone who wants to get out there and market to the cannabis industry. And then we will also add on to that, as is requested, some more. We have some design services in house, and we also have the ability to do, CPC type campaigns, SEO campaigns, things like that, as requested. But the beginning of that agency model is really the kind of the media buying model where we're acting on running campaigns on another brand's behalf.
Gotcha. And did you mention, did you have a tentative timeline for that, or is that something that it's still just very much in the works?
We're doing it now.
Gotcha.
We ran that first campaign with Good Earth Organics. We're running another one. We have 2 more clients we're launching right now. So it's just ongoing. It fits within our business model because we're out there buying advertising anyway, and we're doing this with the same brands who advertise on Leafwire. So we basically sell advertising on Leafwire, and then once they want more, we can go out and buy more for them all over the place.
Got it. Wow. Well, that is so exciting, Peter. You have so much going on over at Leafwire. congratulations first and foremost. Well, not first. We're at the end of the interview, but congratulations on everything that is happening over at Leafwire. You know, you mentioned at the top of our interview that the pandemic has been tough, and you know, we all have not. No one has been able to escape the tribulations of the pandemic. But I am glad to hear that, you know, we're still in the pandemic, but you've made it through that tough stretch, and you have something to certainly look forward to for the future of Leafwire. And thank you so much for joining me today and offering your insights and sharing more information about all you've got going on at Leafwire. And best of luck moving forward. Can't wait to see what y'all will be up to in the future.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Peter Vogel, everybody. And thank you for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. That's it for Hash It Out today, y'all. I am RJ Balde, your host, as always, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out our channel. Click here to watch another episode of Hash It Out. To find more cannabis industry reporting, insider stories, and to stay up to date on the latest trends, make sure to subscribe and keep up with our TRICHOMES community app. Download it now for free, and we'll see you there.